Okay, let's see. Welcome to our webinar today. Our topic is designing PoE lighting and automated systems. Today's webinar, if you have questions, please ask them at the end, or you could type them in the chat or Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom interface. Okay, this is our agenda for today. First, we're going to go over what PoE is and give you some basic understanding of what PoE or Power over Ethernet is. Then we're going to move on to some PoE lighting and automation systems. We're going to then further incorporate those products into a PoE building automation application. And finally, we'll go over some additional PoE solutions. A little bit about our company. ICP DOS was established in 1993. Our headquarters is in Hsinchu, Taiwan, and ICP DOS USA was launched in 2001 to support the North and South American markets. Our products are ISO certified, RoHS compliant, and we're a Windows embedded partner. We offer free tech support, some free software applications, fast shipping, a 1-year warranty, and fast customer service and tech support. What is PoE? Power over Ethernet is a technology that enables the delivery of both electrical power and data over a single Ethernet cable. This simplifies installation of network devices by eliminating the need for separate power supplies and reducing the complexity of cabling. PoE by definition uses an Ethernet cable to carry electrical power along with the data. This is achieved by adding power to unused pairs of wires within the Ethernet cable. Does require using special Ethernet switches, which do add the power to the Ethernet cable, or PoE injectors, which are standalone devices that can be used to add them to just a single Ethernet cable. There are two typical components for the PoE system. There are the power sourcing equipment, which supplies the power. Usually this is a PoE switch or PoE injector. And there are the PD or powered devices. These are the devices which are PoE enabled and receive power through the Ethernet cable or Ethernet cable powered through the PoE switch. These devices are IP cameras, some phones, meaning IP phones, and wireless access points, along with other industrial equipment like sensors, actuators, and other control devices. There are a few PoE standards. The most typical one provides 15.4 watts of PoE power. This is termed standard PoE. Then there's PoE Plus, which supplies up to 30 watts of power. All of this is at about 48 to 53 volts DC voltage through the PoE switch. And finally, there's PoE Plus, or PoE Plus Plus rather, which is up to 60 watts. There are a few others, but these are the main ones which the industrial customers follow. Non-standard PoE is also out there, so be careful. If you use the wrong type of switches, they'll put out the wrong voltage and probably not sufficiently power your special equipment, so be careful on that. Benefits of PoE. PoE is cost effective, meaning it reduces the requirement for adding both electrical and communication wiring. This cuts drastically into material costs, especially with the rising cost of copper. The laying less wiring makes a lot of money savings right there. Flexibility. PoE can be added to a standard existing Ethernet network just by adding some PoE switches, which can share the communication from the existing network or add on top of that, or it can simply be implemented separately by adding a second set of Ethernet cabling or using other standard Ethernet products. And then when you need to power a PoE device, you just simply use a PoE injector or a PoE switch at that point. PoE can be incorporated into standard Ethernet networks. Simplicity, it's very simple to install. A PoE switch simply adds power to standard Ethernet cables and uses standard Ethernet cables in general. So adding it to an existing Ethernet network, it just requires connecting the Ethernet cable from the PoE switch to the standard Ethernet switches in the network. Scalability, it's very easy to add the infrastructure for an Ethernet network because you can use off-the-shelf products along with the PoE-enabled switches and the PoE devices. Overall, this enhances the flexibility of PoE in both building automation, industrial automation, and many, many other applications. It can be something as simple as just adding a IP camera that you want to use for security, or it could be something as complex as adding a automated network for controlling an assembly line. PoE lighting systems are one step or a single product that makes it very nice to use PoE. Traditionally, lighting systems require a switch to turn on and off the lights along with power. Using PoE-enabled lights, you can control the light and power the light through the same connection. This makes it easy to lay and create the necessary cabling by just adding a Ethernet cable and uh, what do you call it? Connecting it to the light, which is PoE enabled, and you can control many features. You can dim it. You can create different change colors for some of these, and you can also schedule them using a Ethernet switch, which I'll show you shortly. They're also very energy efficient. PoE lightings use DC voltage, which tend to be on the minimal side. Nowadays, with LED lights, they're much more energy efficient than incandescent lights. And with the PoE lighting systems, they can be added to the centralized control to uh, improve energy efficiency, like for occupancy. If someone's not in the room, you can use controllers to determine if someone's in the room. If no one's in the room, you could turn the lights off or dim the lights. And then when occupancy is detected, then you can brighten the lights and leave it on for a few minutes, and then shortly after that, cut power or dim it again. PoE is also used in building automation. The previously discussed PoE lighting is one component of it. Using PoE enabled switches like our INS series, which I'll show you shortly, you can do remote controls and you could schedule the light, and you can set the lighting level as well. IP cameras are oftentimes PoE powered. By doing this, you definitely make it much easier to just simply connect a camera to a wired Ethernet connection. This greatly reduces the amount of wiring and simplifies the installation because the the Ethernet connect communication to the camera can also share the video. So therefore, connecting just a standard Ethernet cable makes it much simpler. If you went with the old style traditional ones where you needed power and then video inputs using like a coaxial or something like that, that just requires extra wiring and nowadays it's unneeded. For access control, you can use like what do you call it, card or what is it, like fingerprint type of identification to control building access and improve security in the system. Also, you can implement it with standard devices. Anything Ethernet can also be incorporated with the PoE environment. You just need to supply power to the PoE enabled equipment using special switches, but otherwise you can share the communication and everything to the standard or existing Ethernet network. PoE is also therefore used in factory automation. A lot of sensors and actuators have the PoE function. This definitely also includes the necessary wiring, so you can reduce the wiring costs by and complexity and troubleshooting by just simply using an Ethernet connection to the sensor or actuator, and either communication wise, like through Modbus TCP, you can connect to or control the actuators. PoE is also used in communication devices. We have a series of Modbus TCP gateways, which are PoE powered. They can connect to standard network switches, or if you use PoE power, you can power the device as well and reduce the need for power. You can use standard routers and communication interface that can also be used to share the data from these PoE devices to the cloud. For instance, like our MQTT switches as well. Remote monitoring devices such as industrial cameras and remote sensors can be powered and connected over Ethernet for real-time monitoring and data collection without the need of separate power sources. PoE can also be implemented to share data through SCADA systems or control systems, usually through like Modbus TCP as one protocol that definitely works with most SCADA systems. Let's see. PoE power can be implemented using sensors, controllers, network cameras, and communication modules. In general, the PoE power and data capabilities is the most important function of PoE. So you only need a single Ethernet cable, whether it be like Cat 6 or Cat 5. You just use standard unused pairs within the connector, and it supplies power through those. For industrial automation equipment, sensors and monitoring equipment like temperature and humidity pressure sensors use PoE power so that you can reduce the wiring and make it more of a seamless, simple installation. Let's see, for building automation, you can also incorporate them into HVAC systems, smart meters, and access control systems. This allows for better control and overall control and efficiency for the to optimize the system and the building performance. Here's a rough outline of a installation that was done in a data center in Turkey. This one used our PET 7060 IO module, which communicates Modbus TCP, a temperature and humidity sensor, a PoE switch, and a control center connected to the PoE switch by fiber optics. The control center can read in the temperature and humidity data and can control different aspects of the data center like ventilation and cooling and heating using the PET module. This, data centers need to be maintained at a certain temperature for optimal performance and to prevent the computers and servers from crashing. This is actually a very common application that's implemented in a lot of, I guess, remote areas or large facilities. This is a simple PoE camera and entry system. With this, there's a monitor at the house or the main office connected by Ethernet. At the other end, near the door, is a IO module, which just simply has a connection to a buzzer. And when someone presses the button, It sends the input to the main home or the operator interface. From there, it shows on the camera an image of who's at the door, and then someone within the building or facility can remotely unlock the door to allow the person to enter. This is especially good for like package delivery and for like large farms or estates where the gate is far away. And this way, the IP camera can also be PoE powered so that the entire system is uh, simply wired with a few Ethernet cables as opposed to long lines of copper and power at the different points. These are our INS or IoT network switches. We offer a 6-port, 8-port, and 16-port versions. Note that for the 6-port version, only 4 of the ports are PoE enabled. With this, it has 4 PoE ports and 2 standard ports, which can share data to just standard Ethernet switches without uh, the added cost of having to pay for those extra 2 ports. Let's see, note on the right side that the power input for the various switches varies a little bit. Uh, on the output in the PoE environment, it puts out about 48 volts, but you can power the switches with 12 volts minimum on the 6-port version, 24 port or 24 volts for the 8-port, and 48 volts on the 16-port version. You must also maintain the minimum power wattage that's required for the switches, but that's within the specifications, and that's shown on the specifications, so we'll skip that for now. The switches provide a web GUI, which is essentially a web page where you can configure and manage the PoE power and PoE switch. It provides the ability to schedule within this one. I'll show you in the next page. Okay, this is just a screenshot of the web interface. There's different menus. There's a home menu, there's a scheduling menu, there's a network menu, a MQTT menu if you want to share the data. There's IP filtering, which is available in this where you can prevent or allow only certain IPs to be on the connect to the Ethernet switch for configuration and maintenance to prevent hacking. It's also password protected. Some of the key features for automation, it provides communication abilities to MQTT so you can share data to the cloud. It does Modbus TCP so you can control different aspects of it. You can configure the module using some Modbus TCP registers, or you can monitor the different ports and control the different ports also through Modbus TCP. This switch also supports SNMP. You can set a power schedule so that you can, say, turn on lights or dim lights on a schedule. So, for instance, like morning time, you can turn the lights on. Towards the end of the day, you can start dimming the lights as it gets closer to end of the workday, and then turn the lights off at a scheduled time. Of course, there's also bypasses so that if somebody works late, then you can turn the light back on. But for the most part, you can schedule lighting with that. You can do IP filtering, like I said, where you can control who has access to be able to control the switch. This is, of course, just standard networking. It also provides LAN bypass so that if the switch is off or loses power, it will also allow communication to other devices connected through it to communicate. Just the PoE feature is off, and what's connected to these ports will be also lost. And with this switch, it can supply up to 30 watts of power per port, and you can configure the level of the power output per port to save a power consumption as well. Let's see, here's a diagram that shows a system with a WinPack 9000 controller. That's one of our controllers. It's connected to PET 7200 to turn things on, turn things off. It's got some IP cameras connected. Those are our iCam series. And let's see, this switch is has redundant power supply, so you can connect two power supplies to it so that if one power supply dies, the network will stay active. The right side actually shows a pinout for the PoE power. So note on the right side that Ethernet communication is uh, using pins 1 and 2 and 3 and 6, but PoE power is also applied to 1 and 2 and 3 and 6 using additional pins. So meaning if you follow electricity, the power and ground or I'm sorry, the power is the V plus and the ground is the V negative. So you can also pull power from those shared pins in the Ethernet cable. Let's see, this switch, the INS series, also provides the ability to do the power on-off schedule. So for instance, like I gave you the example of the lighting schedule for an office building, you can also do scheduling for like schools and remote facilities as well. I know that this has been something that was set up in a few offices nearby where people wanted to, maintain a nice schedule and save electricity, so they were used for this application. Here's a picture of a more detailed view of the scheduling feature. So the hours are in military time. So 0 is like 12 midnight, 1 o'clock is 1 a.m., and 2300 is 11 p.m. You have the ability to perform a certain action on a certain day, and you check the boxes, which will allow you to either turn things on, turn things off, or schedule certain features. Like within this one, there's toggle on and off, toggle resets, and you just simply check the box for when you want that to happen throughout the day. Then we have our CL200 monitoring systems. These are environmental and gas detection. So we have sensors for various different gases. There's carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, which is very popular in the furniture industry, and a few other gases and chemicals that you want to prevent exposure to. Specifically, the ones that we have here, the Ethernet versions or the PoE versions. These are very good in like office buildings and factories, and many different places also where potential hazardous fumes are present. I know the woodworking industry and furniture making industry use formaldehyde sensors, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, usually used in like greenhouses and parking garages, and various other applications. But whatever type of gas you want to sense, you just pick the appropriate model shown here. And again, the Ethernet versions are PoE enabled. The Wi-Fi and CAN bus are not. So for the purpose of this presentation, you want to use the PoE versions for simple wiring and implementation. Then we have our PoE access control systems. These are card readers and RFID, and they also have a keypad so you could punch in a code. It will be used with a security system, and it communicates to the web server, and you could save a list of people that will be given access based on the code or the card or some other form of ID. And this is used for like entry door and security applications. usually like where there's restricted areas that you want to minimize access to those areas. Let's see, this is just a mock-up of a PoE security system. This uses our WISE 5231M-4GE, which is a cellular module, but it doesn't need to be cellular. Basically, the IP camera uh, will record what's happening in there. If a break-in occurs using one of the, like a door sensor, the door sensor will trigger the WISE 5231 to start recording on the camera, and it'll tell when somebody's entered the door, and you can see who it is. Some of the more sophisticated ones also incorporate other features like remote notification. So like maybe you'll get an email or a text, but for this application, it's just simply when the door is open, it starts recording, and it records, and it can send the picture through email, in this case through cellular network, but we also have Ethernet versions which could do a similar thing. PoE is also used in many field bus communications. One of our most popular products are our TGW series. These are Modbus TCP to Modbus RTU gateways. They utilize PoE for simple wiring, so you just need to wire a PoE connection to it with a single Ethernet cable. Then you connect the Ethernet cable to the TGW, and you connect a second Ethernet cable to the computer or Modbus master, and from there you can communicate to the slave devices connected to the RS-485 bus on the other side. With the TGW 725, it's got two COM ports, so it can communicate to two separate RS-485 runs of Modbus RTU or Modbus ASCII slave devices, and bring the data back to the master device. In this case, it's shown as a PC, but it can also easily be a PLC or HMI. We sell PoE injectors and PoE splitters. Basically, the splitter allows you to connect an Ethernet cable which has PoE into it, and it separates power and data. This is used for like powering sensors using a PoE device. Maybe the sensor is not PoE enabled, but you can use a PoE splitter to extract the power at the location where the sensor is and share that power with the sensor and the communication. The PoE injectors do almost the opposite, where a standard Ethernet cable comes in, then you power the PoE splitter with either 48 or 24 volts, depending on which model you choose, and it will output 15.4 watts of PoE on the Ethernet cable coming out of it. This is used for like a single sensor or a single PoE device that you need to power in an area. Maybe, for instance, you're adding an IP camera and you want to simplify the wiring, so you just use a PoE injector to power that one camera, and you save the money of purchasing a PoE switch, which costs a little bit more, but it just saves you money because you really only need one PoE connection. We offer PoE touchscreen controllers. Specifically shown here is our TPD 703. This one communicates using Modbus TCP or Modbus RTU to remote devices like HMIs, sensors, or remote I/O modules to bring in data, and it can display and control the devices connected to it from Modbus RTU and TCP, and it's got a real time clock built in, and it supports C and ladder programming done using our HMI Works software. And the example shown here is a nice example for building automation. In this case, it was controlling our factory's theater room. The theater room had the air conditioning control, the lighting, and the fluorescent lights, uh, controllable through these panels, which are put near the doorways. So by the entry doors, you can control these features. Our contact information is shown here. Our phone number is in the bottom left, and you can contact us through the sales department at sales@icp-usa.com. For technical inquiries, you could also use a sales email, or you can just call us during normal business hours of 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is for our Houston office. And we can help you with any PoE product questions concerning our PoE lighting systems, our other automated systems, or any of our products in general. Thank you for joining, and hopefully you have a great day.